Most men die at 30 but are buried at 72. Now, I love this quote because that's a reality that most men face today. If you've been so focused on building your career, climbing the ladder that you've neglected yourself, you've neglected your health, and now you're struggling with low energy, joint, back pains, sleep apnea, high blood pressure, diabetes, this video could change your life. As Asian men, we were raised to work hard, build great careers, provide for our families, make our parents proud. Money was so glorified, but we were never taught how to take care of ourselves. We were raised to think that putting ourselves first was selfish, but we need to rewire that thinking because you can't pour out of an empty cup. If you truly want to provide and take care of your family, your future family, you need to fix yourself first because you are the foundation of the household. So let me show you the exact framework I've used to help Teddy here, for example, rebuild his health and feel like himself again. He lost close to 60 pounds. His blood pressure is back to normal. He's no longer pre-diabetic, and he finally found the confidence to propose to his fiancée. We have Rich, who we helped rebuild a stronger and healthier body so he can keep up with his kids as he goes into his 50s. We even got my brother here, who finally felt good enough looking at a family photo. We have Brian, who lost over 30 pounds, reduced inflammation, restored his youth, and just take a look at how much younger his face looks. The same here goes for Ron. He's only 29 years old, but look at how much work stress has accelerated his aging. This is a proven system, and when done correctly, it will work for you too. Now, in the past, I know you've probably tried restrictive Western diets, workouts you saw online, and maybe even medication, but nothing really stuck. And you're not alone, like I've been there before as well. And that happens because we're different. Our lifestyle, our cultural expectations of biology, it's not the same as Western counterparts. Studies here show that Asian men have higher metabolic risks at lower body fat percentages. We tend to store higher amounts of visceral fat, which is the fat that's stored beneath our organs. So sometimes you won't even be able to physically see this. And that increases our risk for type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, and stroke. Now, there's a few fundamental principles that you need to understand before I walk you through the process that we've used, because a lot of the men I've spoken to have been misled by the information available online. Now, if you want to actually keep the weight off and improve your health markers, you need to understand the laws of thermodynamics. Too many people overemphasize the importance of exercise, and yes, it definitely has long-term metabolic advantages, but it's not as important as people make it out to be. So a personal trainer, it's not going to solve your problem, and let me explain to you why. Now, the first law of thermodynamics is simple: calories in versus calories out, and we all know that. But what many people don't take into account is the second law of thermodynamics, which essentially outlines that not all calories are equal. And restrictive caloric intakes can lead to metabolic adaptation. And when metabolic adaptation occurs, it makes it a lot more difficult to lose fat sustainably over time. We also need to take into consideration that different macronutrients such as proteins, carbs, and fats all have different thermic effects, and they all play a very important role in hormonal regulation. So I know these are all big words, and what does that actually mean? When you don't give your body what it needs, your body starts to fight against you. So instead of thinking, I need to work out more or I need to eat less, you need to ask yourself this question: what are the key levers that I can pull to make this process more efficient and a little bit easier? So let me show you the TDEE bar graph. And for those of you who've never or not familiar with what TDEE is, it essentially means total daily energy expenditure, which in simpler terms is just the amount of calories you burn per day. Now, your TDEE is broken down into a few different subcategories. EAT is your exercise thermogenesis, which is the energy expended through intentional exercise. Now, if you look at here, it's only 5 to 10% of your daily energy expenditure, and you can actually burn similar amounts of calories by focusing on just the thermic effect of feeding, which is TEF. Now, your TEF is influenced by what you eat, when you eat, and how much you eat. So when that's done correctly, you're able to optimize your BMR because your hormones become regulated. And now we're playing a completely different game. Exercise is actually the least important variable to your success. Despite everything you might have seen on social media or all the articles you've read online, it's not that important. Stop making the game harder than it needs to be. Instead, focus on low effort but efficient activity that brings in the highest and best results. Now, what you see online and on social media is typically curated for Western counterparts. So what works for them doesn't really work for us, which is exactly why I developed CMO, cultural metabolic optimization. It's a predictable approach that systemizes sustainable results for Asian men, removing the stress, the guilt, the frustration from the entire process. And I created this system because I myself was in a similar position in the past. I was in great shape in high school, but as I got older, got my first full-time job, I started stress eating, working out less, and I was just constantly tired. Now, this impacted my relationship with my family, my friends, and I really felt like I lost a big part of who I was. Now, after implementing the CMO principles, I was able to maintain my performance, my health, and my body despite how stressful life got. Now, my dad actually went through the same problem himself. He was so focused on building a future, his career for his family, that he forgot about being present. He neglected his health, he became diabetic, and when I was younger, he'd always come home tired, exhausted, and I didn't really have the best relationship with him growing up because he always felt so distant. And I guarantee you, in the moment, my dad probably didn't realize that his lack and his neglect of his health was having that impact to his family. I've spoken to so many Asian dads, and I know a big goal of theirs is to be present, to be able to keep up and play with their kids, and to be able to really build that relationship. And maybe you're going through a very similar situation. Now, in his late 40s, he started working on his health, and he just looks so much happier. He's healthier, he's more present, and we were able to rebuild that relationship together. Now, CMO does require a lot of data tracking, to be completely transparent. And I'll explain to you what you need to be paying attention to and the questions you should be asking yourself. Now, I know it might feel like a lot of effort, but data really does give you a lot of peace, a lot of freedom and flexibility. Data reduces stress, it reduces decision fatigue, and also allows you to have family meals that improve your longevity. So the biggest thing I'd say is learn to embrace effort and learn to embrace data because it's going to create a lot of peace in your life. Now, with that said, let's move on to the actual process. Stage 1 is analysis. Now, let me walk you through our onboarding process for our clients because every stage has psychological intention to increase the likelihood of our client success, and some of which I hope you can implement within yourself as well. Now, instantly after joining, they get redirected to this portal. This is just a quick video breaking down internal systems. And this is important because it creates clarity, because without clarity, people don't take the next action, they get overwhelmed. So our goal is to really make the path as precise and clear as possible so our clients don't feel overwhelmed. Now, in this video, I prime expectations, and I like to make it sound harder than it actually is. Now, this is done intentionally because when our clients actually start their journey and are given the support, the guidance they've been missing, it is really just a walk in the park. And they're there asking or waiting for when does things actually become difficult, which is exactly where we want them to be. Now, all our clients book a one-on-one onboarding call with their dedicated coach and advisor, and we learned that human connection is absolutely critical for success. And this is why we have so many different touch points throughout the entire process, because we found that the more touch points we have, the more trust we're able to build within the relationship. And because of this, as a byproduct, our clients are actually a lot more adherent to the instructions and they tend to enjoy the process a lot more. Now, on the call, we collect specific insight and ask questions to build a clear blueprint of what your life looks like. And then from there, we start to remodel it a little bit. The purpose of this is to reduce friction and make the transition a lot more sustainable. I'll give you the exact questions that we take all our clients through by the end of this video so you can self-audit yourself. This entire 3-step process has been designed to build trust and clarity as quickly as possible. And since implementing this, we've actually noticed a massive increase of about 32% in our adherence and success rate. And the reason for that is because it builds confidence and self-belief, encouraging them to look for more challenges at the end of every checkpoint. And because of this process, we've actually been able to systemize the production of highly ambitious and motivated men. It becomes systematic, it becomes predictable. Another variable we like to look at are your hormones. Now, this isn't mandatory for everyone, but it really does give us a better understanding of what is actually happening. Hormones are typically overlooked by doctors and nutritionists, and they don't connect how hormones can impact your mood, your energy, your fat loss, and your long-term sustainability. Now, most of the times, doctors will just prescribe medication or extremely rigid training, nutrition protocols that's extremely unsustainable to follow. And in many cases, hormonal issues typically occur because of poor protocol management, chronic stress, medication, and again, overly restrictive diets. When hormones aren't balanced, you always feel tired, stressed, burnt out. Maybe these are a few symptoms that you might be experiencing now yourself. And these numbers, they tell a very different story when you know how to actually read them. Take a look at our client Alan here, for example. I was reviewing his blood work and I noticed that his sex hormone binding globulin was actually quite low. So I told him to go visit a specialist and he found out he was infertile. And he was actually only in his 30s. At the time, he was actually going through challenges within his relationship and going through a divorce with his partner because his wife, she didn't want to have kids. So they ended up separating only to find out later that he couldn't have kids in the first place. And this is why it's so important to have someone by your side looking at your blind spots, because these things are often missed. Now, if you haven't had your blood work done recently, this is just a reminder to get it done. I highly recommend doing it at least every 6 or 12 months, just depending on your current state and what exactly it is you're doing. Now, with that said, moving on to stage 2 is actual production. Once we have a clear layout of what your life actually looks like, we get to do the fun part, right? Start to actually build the protocols. And this is Teddy's submission when he first started. Now, since then, we actually ask a lot of these questions on onboarding calls just to make our clients' lives a little bit easier, because we actually found that 25% of our members who initially joined didn't fill out the onboarding form. So we changed the process just to make our clients a little bit more accountable and focus on getting the pace moving as fast as possible. Now, this didn't necessarily apply for Teddy, but a common pattern we do see amongst a lot of Asian men is a process called metabolic burnout. And you might be experiencing some of these symptoms yourself. Typically, you'll notice consistent fatigue, stubborn weight, intense sugar cravings, and difficulty losing weight despite being in a calorie deficit. So these are all symptoms of a slowed and, let's just say, damaged metabolism. And again, this is just a byproduct of extreme dieting phases that you might have done in the past. Long periods of malnourishment slows down the metabolism and makes progress a lot more difficult over time. And when that's the case, we actually increase their caloric intake. We implement a gradual ramp up to restore a metabolic function before pushing for fat loss again. Now, when it comes to nutrition protocols, with the data that we've collected, we're able to estimate your basal caloric intake. And this is what I like to call BCI. Now, you can use this traditional formula that you can just find online. It's quite generalized and not really curated for Asian men and our lifestyle variables. So what I've done is actually develop a custom calculator using all the data we've collected through our clients, taking into consideration lifestyle variables, metabolic patterns and tendencies. So this is not something you can find on Google or anywhere else. If you do want to have access to it, I'll let you know how to get it at the end of this video. But for now, I just want you to really pay attention to understanding the theory involved. This is very important because this will give you a better peace of mind that you're starting at a much better position. And again, this is still an estimation. There's a few tests that you need to go through in order to confirm and validate whether or not you are starting at the right place. And I'll walk you through what that process looks like as well. But now that we know your BCI, we'll take influences from your current eating times and your meal structure. And from that, we'll build a clear nutrition plan to help you regulate your energy levels, improve your focus, and just assist with hormonal imbalances as well. Now, key nutritional metrics that we want to pay attention to is, of course, calories, carbs, proteins, fats, and also fiber. Then from there, we look at vitamins and minerals in a more micro perspective if we do see red flags from that initial stage. Now, if you're going to go ahead and design your own food protocols, a very good practice to have, and this is what we like to do, is have a few different variations, maybe 1 to 3 different variations. So typically what we do for our clients is create one meal plan variation for the weekdays, one meal plan variation for the weekends when they have a little bit more time. We also like to create emergency mealtime protocols in the case that maybe you're held up at work or meetings are running late. So this actually allows you and gives you the flexibility to eat takeout, fast food, while still being able to stay on track and being able to do it guilt-free. For others, we build what we call social plans, and this allows you to have flexibility, enjoy meals with friends and family, again, just guilt-free. And this way you're able to establish balance and sustainability long-term. Now, these meal times are based on your schedule. A lot of Asian men typically just eat 1 to 2 meals per day, which can, again, lead to metabolic burnout. So we encourage to eat every 3 to 5 hours to regulate protein synthesis. This also reduces stress eating, which is big for a lot of the men that we work with, and also controls binge eating cycles. Now, having this structure allows you to control stress eating and binge eating patterns, and we've been able to track and monitor this data point. And by having this structure, we've actually recorded a decrease of binge eating patterns by 70%. So it's very powerful to have. And at first, it might feel a little bit rigid and uncomfortable, but it's going to do a lot of good in your life and create a lot of peace in your life. Once the nutrition protocols are in place, we want to look at hypertrophic stimulus. Now, traditionally, this is measured by volume, which is an equation of sets times reps times weight. However, that's not what we like to prioritize first. Now, everyone thinks that lifting heavier, lifting more, and working out more is a solution, but that's actually only one variable, one lever that you can pull, right? So people's priorities tend to look like this. Increase weight, and then maybe sets, and then you increase reps, and tempo and RIR, not many people even pay attention to. But in reality, this is what your focus of execution should look like. So we have tempo at the very top. Then we focus on RIR, which stands for reps in reserve, also known as training intensity. Once we have those two parameters within target, we then focus on increasing reps, then increasing weights, and then we can focus on increasing sets so that you're not spending hours within the gym and you're still getting maximum output without reduced time. By implementing this process, this is how our clients are seeing amazing results just going to the gym 2 to 3 times a week with maybe 60 minutes per session. Again, we want to focus on efficiency and intentional movement. Here's an example for one of our clients, and you'll notice that we don't do a lot of compounds. It's not as metabolically efficient because it's not as good as stimulating muscle hypertrophy. And when you work full time, we want to be in and out of the gym. A lot of the times it takes long rest times. It also takes a while to set up. So compounds are also very taxing on your central nervous system. And for those that are in their 30s and 40s, it's extremely difficult to recover from and also has a higher risk of injury. So again, we just want to focus on optimizing our time and optimizing our effort as well. Once you hit past the age of 30, our bodies are different now. So the way you do things also need to adapt. We need to be a lot smarter and intentional with our movement and quality of execution to avoid any potential breakdowns as we transition into our 40s, 50s, and so on. Now, the final element we like to look at is supplementation. And we don't just give you supplements for the sake of giving you supplements. Supplements are typically a last resort if for whatever reason you can't hit specific vitamins and nutritional requirements through whole foods. Now, your biomarkers will obviously influence what supplements you need and how much you need. Unlike a lot of trainers and nutritionists, they just give you supplements for the sake of giving you supplements. And I don't agree with that at all. Moving on to stage 3, it usually takes us about 24 to 48 hours from your onboarding call to complete your protocols. Speed to us is very, very important because what we've noticed is when our clients are on standby or waiting around for too long, they lose that momentum. So we do want to be speedy, but we also want to be precise with every decision that we make. During this process, while they are waiting for their customized protocols, they are able to join weekly group calls so they can start their learning process and feel involved as fast as possible to keep that momentum going. Now, at the end of your onboarding call, we'll book you in for your induction call, which is essentially a video one-on-one, breaking down the exact thought decision-making processes that we've made so you can understand why we did what we did and you have a deeper understanding of why you're doing what you're doing. Again, not something a lot of trainers, nutritionists, or doctors do. They just kind of give you a plan and get you to figure it out yourself. But we want you to really learn through this process. And even in this video alone, I know there's a lot of things that we're kind of brushing over, but I hope you're learning a lot through this video too. Our goal is to really earn trust, give you clarity, so again, you can execute without resistance and really understand our thought decision-making pattern. Now, when it comes to food, we don't believe in restriction, and this can look very, very different for everyone else. Transparently, we do have clients who like to eat the same thing every day, and you can do that if you'd like. But if you want more flexibility and you do have a bit more time, maybe on the weekends, you can definitely do that as well. Personally, I like to go out with my fiance and my family, and I don't want to be eating feeling guilty, and this is why I've implemented these systems and protocols in my life as well. But here we have Efrain, for example, eating what we call an anabolic burger. We have Josh eating, chicken fried rice. He's got Spam McMuffins and just a couple of other meal variations. You got mini pizzas, which is great. Augustus here is eating, I believe that's katsu or pork. I don't know if it's chicken or pork, but he's got his rice, crispy chicken. You got his beef. You got Dale eating his bagel. You got Augustus eating a different variation of burger. You even have Tommy eating noodles, Michael eating more rice, more fried rice. I love fried rice myself, and I also love eating pad thai and pad see ew. I would say those are my 2 favorite Asian meals. Again, food is such a big part of our culture, and I feel like a lot of the things you see on social media demonizes a lot of the foods that we grew up with. Food is such a big part of family, of connection, and I know in Japanese and I think also Chinese heritage, when you're doing business or meeting new clients, like it's tradition to drink and eat, and I don't ever want our clients to feel like they can't do that because it's just a part of who we are. And when we remove that flexibility, it creates a lot more psychological resistance. In the long run, it just causes more harm than good. Now, moving on to stage 4, after we have the induction call, the first 14 days is all about adaptation and establishing baselines, which is something you need to pay attention to yourself. We need to place close attention to the feedback that your body's giving, and typically we track this through weight progression on a weekly basis, your volume progression, and data points like energy, strength, hunger levels, stress levels, just a couple of examples of data points that we'd like to pay attention to. Now, I know it's a lot of information to track, and this dashboard can look a little bit overwhelming, so we tried to simplify that whole process through our custom-built app. And every week we do have a weekly live one-on-one check-in. This is designed to keep our clients accountable and also answer any questions you might have, right? But more importantly, making changes based on your body's response so that way you avoid plateaus and continue to stay motivated, which as a byproduct will create consistency. People that are looking to join the program typically ask me like, wouldn't it be better to have someone in person to help with my exercise analysis? And I understand that this format can be new for a lot of people, but the beauty about digital check-ins is that we're able to break down movements frame by frame and also able to explain to you muscle anatomy on a deeper level breaking down your biomechanics and why it specifically works better for you. Because everyone's requirements on how to perform certain movements can vary depending on your structure overall, your arm length, your mobility, your torso length. Like all these things play a massive role in how you set up specific movements. And because we're able to break it down to this a microscopic level, your ability to understand and comprehend biomechanics of movement tremendously increases. And it's also just a lot more efficient this way because we're able to assess multiple movements consecutively. Now, in the rare case that some of our clients may still struggle with maybe one or two exercises, what we usually recommend is compile a short list and then take that to somebody in person where you can break that down rather than visiting a personal trainer 1 to 3 times a week, paying $100 or so per session, only to do the same movement. So you're not really learning anything new. And that's just a common misconception I wanted to address because I just don't think a lot of people understand or appreciate the digital format. Like we are evolving, and I myself have never had an in-person trainer or coach. And not to mention, to become a certified PT, it only takes a couple weeks in like an online course. And I don't say this to put down personal trainers. I just don't think people understand the use case of each solution. And my goal in this platform is just to help people enhance their knowledge and understanding within this space. We also have weekly group calls where we dive a bit more in depth on topics and principles when it comes to mindset, training, and nutrition, teaching them how to be preventative and what actions they need to take based on the challenges that they're experiencing. Another common question I typically get is, what does the timeline look like? Like, what does every day look like? That does vary from person to person, but this is how I typically like to structure timelines from a training, nutritional, self-development perspective. This is a structure that maybe you can follow through yourself. Again, each phase does have its own intricacies, but here's a high-level overview. So typically we start with block 1. This can range from 12 to 16 weeks. The first 2 weeks we look at establishing your baseline, really figuring out your starting point. And stage 2 is about building foundations, developing habits, becoming familiar with the new routines, also understanding how to perform specific movements. But block 1 is generally 12 to 16 weeks, and that's broken down to 5 different phases. You have your baselines, you have phase 1, 2, 3, and then your deload. Now, intensity increases in each phase by pulling one of the key levers of hypertrophy and volume, typically in the form of set count or intensity. Just to be clear, nutrition protocols, they can change week by week, and you don't need to wait multiple weeks for that. But when it comes to hypertrophy, it does take a lot longer or a little bit longer for your body to adapt. And generally speaking, that phase can typically range from 3 to 4 weeks long. Now, a lot of men don't implement a deload phase, which is a very important mechanism. It allows our body to reset and rest. This helps avoid plateaus and also helps you regulate your hormones just for the sake of longevity and sustainability. Block number 2, we redesign training protocols and continue to make adjustments to your nutrition. But more importantly, along the way of each week will help you overcome mental challenges, help you overcome roadblocks to help you establish better habits and discipline. Now, moving to probably the most important phase within this whole process is the health block, which can last 6 to 12 weeks, again, just depending on where your metabolic health is at the end of your deficit. And this is typically broken down to 3 different phases. You got your metabolic regulation, hormonal ramp up, and of course you have stabilization. And this process is extremely crucial for longevity and a key missing piece for a lot of men. Without this, you're more than likely to rebound, gain all the way back, which is what we want to avoid. Typically that happens because of hormonal burnout. So it's very, very important to regulate your hormonal process along each week. And this is something I can dive deeper in future videos, but as you go through these blocks and phases, your hormones, your intake, your mood, they will change. But by the end of it, we do want to help you come back to regulated baselines. Sustainability is another topic of conversation I want to dive into because, as I said, our goal here is a long term. And when you're in a deficit for 16 to 24 weeks, a lot can go wrong, right? And this is exactly why we implement strategies like metabolic regulation, which is when you'll have days with higher intakes to stabilize hormonal levels. High days will increase your leptin, replenish your glycogen, and also support your thyroid. And this is important because, again, it just improves insulin sensitivity. It keeps your cortisol down, and this trains your body to work with you and not against you. Now, at this point, you've probably come to realization that I'm a bit of a data nerd, and we even monitor our coaches' performance. They average about 9.5 out of 10, which is great. And right now we have about 147 active clients. Now my goal is to hit 250 active members for 2026, which would be sick. And the funny thing about business is that it just became a new mountain for me to climb. Like, I've really understood biological processes, muscle hypertrophy, and it's become so normal to me. I wanted to look for a new challenge. So I started to grow this business and be able to help other people do the same, which has been so much fun. Like, I absolutely love building the systems, the backends, the data. I love building and progressing. And oftentimes, maybe this is something you guys can relate to, is that once you accomplish and master one pillar of your life, you start to implement and follow principles called skill transfer. So a lot of the behavioral patterns, principles, and work ethic that I've learned through my fitness journey, I've been able to actually transfer into building other elements of my life, my relationships, my business. And without that pillar, without that foundation of discipline, work ethic, and habitual development, I definitely would not be in the position I am today. I owe a lot of my success to the foundations and principles I've learned my 10 years of being in the health and fitness space. I love doing what we do, and it's super, super rewarding to see the impact that we're making. I can't explain how it makes me feel when I see people like Teddy, go from 300 to 240, fix their hormones, get their confidence back, and just ultimately get their life back. The thing that I love the most about Teddy's story is that when he first reached out, he was very nervous, he was very scared, but I challenged him. I remember that conversation so clearly. And I would say the highlight of that relationship for me was being able to help him rebuild his confidence and be able to finally propose to his fiance. Like, he sent me this message, I wanted to do this sooner for her, but I just wasn't confident of myself. It took until going through the program and regaining my confidence and self-control that I finally felt ready. That to me has so far been my favorite testimonial, and that's why I like to use Teddy a lot. It's just because I can resonate with Teddy, and I feel like you might be able to resonate with Teddy as well. And it's just so amazing to be able to help someone like him. And we got Chris, who's a father. He was really worried about his health, and we've been able to improve his fasting glucose, his cholesterol, his liver enzymes, and just overall his weight, his nutrition. Yeah, it's just improved quite dramatically. We even have Matt here, who we help fix his relationship with food. And we also have Andy here, who actually also proposed to his fiance. Francis is finally building a physique that he feels confident in. And you have Matt, who ran a marathon and got his health back on track. Again, it's just extremely rewarding to be able to be a part of people's journey and break this generational cycle of health issues, lack of presence, lack of leadership, building better generations moving forward, setting the foundations for our children, really just being an icon as a symbol of leadership. Now, if you want to get our onboarding questionnaire so you can self-audit, make sure you're following me on Instagram and just comment onboarding on any video so that way I can send it to you. Instagram doesn't let me send links, or it increases the likelihood of me being banned. For the calculator, you can just comment calculator on any video. And if you want to see if you qualify for the program, you want our help, just comment qualify any video on Instagram and I'll actually personally reach out to you. You can also click the link below and book in a call with me or my team. And just to wrap up, I know that was a lot of information. I might be speaking a little bit too fast too, but if you do implement these principles in your life, you will see results. And if you ever do get stuck, please don't ever hesitate to reach out and just message me on Instagram.